Good evening. I'd like to call the Utility Special District Board of Directors meeting of February 25th to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Chair Thomas Davis Johnson.
Here.
Pro Tem Lynn Hubbard.
Here.
Board Member Kashama Miller Anderson. Board Member Julia Botel.
Here.
Board Member Terrence Davis.
Here.
Ex officio Board Member Mayor Thomas Masters. City Manager Karen Hoskins.
Here.
Acting Executive Director Leighton Walker. District Clerk. Assistant Deputy Clerk Jacqueline Burgess is present, and District Attorney Don Wynn.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Madam Chair,
Correct that.
there should be a correction on the executive director. The executive director is Willie Horton, who is present.
Thank you. I would like for us to stand for a moment of silence, and in that moment of silence, if you would please pray for our colleague, Kashama Miller Anderson, and her husband, Joseph Anderson, and the loss of their father, Mr. Joseph Anderson, on today. So please keep that family in your prayers, and let's take a moment of silence before the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilwoman Botel.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members of the public shall be given a total of 3 minutes to speak on all items listed on the consent agenda. Any person who would like to speak on consent agenda items, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to staff prior to the adoption of the agenda. Madam Manager, are there any additions, deletions, or substitutions?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have one revision on agenda item number 4, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the Utility Special District to waive all late fees during the period of a federal government shutdown and providing an effective date.
So moved.
It's just a add, delete. Are there any other,
It's just a revision to
and
that
the revision
resolution.
simply is changing authorizes to authorizing, based on what I can see. Is it, that was the revision?
There were a couple of others.
Couple
Okay.
wordsmiths.
That's, okay. So that item 4 with the revision, any additions, deletions, or substitutions from the mayor and district board?
No, I have a item to pull.
I'm not there yet.
Okay,
Thank you. Motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. Madam Clerk.
Board Member Botel.
Yes.
Board Member Davis.
Yes, ma'am.
Pro Tem Hubbard.
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Consent agenda. All matters listed under this item are considered to be routine, and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Are there any items to be pulled from the district board?
Yes. I would like to pull that only item in the consent agenda. Madam Chair.
Alrighty.
Motion
Ms.
to approve agenda
Ms. Hubbard.
item.
You said the only item, but there's minutes also on there, so you
Yes.
pull in a certain.
So
So,
sorry.
item, state the item, please. Item number.
Okay. 3. Item number 3, Madam.
Motion to approve agenda item number 3 being pulled.
Is there a second? There is no second. Motion fails. Motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
No.
She's asking for it to be pulled.
Pulled
Yes.
for discussion.
The agenda, please. I'm sorry.
The consent.
One moment, I apologize. Who made the motion? Who's the maker of the motion? And there is no you're seconding. Okay, there was no second.
Right, she's pulling the item. You just need a motion to pass the consent agenda, which are the minutes. The item should be pulled.
Okay.
Yes.
Before-
It's just a motion to.
Right, I just didn't hear a second
Because there wasn't one.
On the minutes.
on the minutes.
Okay.
There was no second, so.
Trying to approve the minutes.
I don't
yeah.
think any, yes.
Okay.
Do you all understand that it was a
Yes.
motion?
Oh, I
to
do.
approve the- Okay, so do I have a motion and a second now?
Yes, we still,
Yeah.
my second stand.
Okay, all righty, so
We do
there's
have
been a
one public.
motion.
One public comment card on the consent.
Okay.
Ms. Mary Brown.
Miss Mary Brown, good afternoon. You
Good
can see I have on my Black Panther attire this evening because I'm so proud of the Academy Awards and what they did. So I'm hoping that everybody watched it last night. This resolution here, I know it was out in the community. I was all out on Saturday, had a great time, even on this side here. And apparently when you hear about Scrap Metal LLC, the first thing that resonates with people are you're trying to sneak something in. I got up and I did my own homework because I went down to Pompano just to be sure that this was up and on a board so that the people of Riviera Beach would not be put in situations where we have to rise up and fight. So I come to understand that the reason that this is here is because it's not an RFP required. It is more or less just of a member of a corp like West Palm Beach and others, that would come in and use particular people to assist them in obtaining the metals that are in our city. And we have these meters that will be, whoever, I'm quite sure that this company would do that and take it elsewhere for recycling. So I want the general public to know that Ms. Bram is on guard and she understands, so you do not have to fear here. It is nothing coming into this city here to cause our ground to be contaminated and our schools to be contaminated. So this utility board, in their usage, they will use this company to facilitate what they need to have facilitated pertaining to the utility district. And I also would like for Mr. Horton as well to expound on it also, because if there are any incorrections that need to be done, I would like for the director of the utility to also explain, because we know that the community is heated, and when they hear these things here, they are more fired up. So we do not want misinformations to be put out, and as I've always said, I know you have backup, and residents do not always see the backup. I've always said that in your agenda and resolutions, it should stipulate a little bit more of the detail so the general public can see it. So that is something that I wish that the board would consider and work on and do a better job at with the various departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Board Member Botel.
Yes.
Board Member Davis.
Yes.
We're voting to approve the
Approve it,
consent
minutes.
agenda, just the minutes.
Just the minutes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Board Member Davis.
Yes.
Pro Tem Hubbard.
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Resolution 3-19 UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District Palm Beach County, Florida, approving the contract from Capital Scrap Metal LLC in accordance with ITB number CS-19-11 Scrap Metal Recycling Cooperative Contract on behalf of the Southeast Florida Governmental Purchasing Cooperative Group, authorizing chairperson and district clerk to execute same, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and authorizing utility special district finance director to receive revenue into account 411-00-369-901 and provide an effective date.
So move.
Second.
Good evening, Mr. Horton.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. This particular agreement is to allow the utility district to adequately dispose of scrap metal and receive monetary value for that scrap metal as opposed to just disposing of the metal. This company was acquired through the cooperative agreement. We are members of the Southeast Florida Governmental Purchasing Cooperative Group, and we're members through our procurement personnel, and this is how we obtain this particular contract. So I want to encourage the board to approve this particular contract so that we will have a way to expediently dispose of all scrap metal, to include all of the metal that we will gain from the removal of the old meters that we are now in action are actually replacing at this time.
Question, Mr. Horton, Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Pro Tem, you recognize?
My original concern was whether or not we had any persons here that disposed of scrap metal. Well, we know we have a lot of people in the city that do a lot of scrapping, if you will. How much is it that we plan to get reimbursed or receive monetarily from allowing this particular company to take the scrap out of the city?
That price, as I understand it, will vary from time to time throughout the year based upon the market rate. I've got my procurement person here, Ms. Pamela Day, who can expound on that greater, but it's my understanding it's based upon the market at the time they receive a certain batch. This will be an ongoing effort during the duration of this particular contract, and so it would just depend on what time of year it is. Ms. Day, would you come up for a moment, please? Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, please. While she comes to the dais, my concern is that we have a lot of small businesses that are doing scrapping, if you will, or scrapping metals, and I'm thinking that with a little effort, just with a little effort, we might be able to go into a contract with one of those companies and receive a percentage, and also honor our effort to do local participation as opposed to going outside of the city limits and partnering with this particular company, because, you know, we are part of the consortium, the Southeast Consortium. That's fine on its face, but it doesn't lend itself to us helping the local community or the local businesses. So I thought that, I guess with a little more information from Ms. Daly, she'll tell me why this isn't possible.
It's not that it isn't possible. What had happened is, as part of the consortium, we know that we get a larger bang for our buck when we do it with multiple agencies. They use American Metal Market in the indexing and pricing. And on the sheet, basically in the package, it indicates back there the percentages that they're going to give us of the market price. I don't know, and I've been working with a lot of our businesses for years, and we've always tried to get them to come in, sign up, and, you know, work with us. I don't know how we can get our businesses to become more involved so we actively know who they are, because we've asked for lists before. We've tried to meet and market with the small businesses. You're aware of the program we even did to reach out to small businesses. So yes, we could do it. I think in the interim, in putting this contract in place, it will show us, give us a benchmark. So if in fact we put this contract in place and then next year you say, well, let's go out, then we can go out and you'll be able to determine if in fact it was of great value, because it is a revenue contract for us. So using the American metal market, assuming that they would use that, then we would benefit greatly from the prices that are quoted on here. Because one of the prices, they're going to pay us 108% per pound of whatever the stated price is in the American metal market. And I don't know of our small businesses here, and if there are in fact people here, I think that maybe we need to push more and more to do, I don't know, small business meetings and see if we can get people to come in, because that's been our struggle. They won't come in.
For example, something like this coming down the pipe, and we have a meeting almost 2-3 times a week. If while we're here, an announcement was to be made, you know, by your department stating that we are going out for scrap metal bidders, and we would like the scrap metal companies in our town to come forward, list your name so that you can bid on this need that we have. And then they will see it here, I'm sure, on the TV. Somebody will tell them, the people in the audience. When we have these needs, we have a captive audience in the fact that we are on Channel 18 for simple things. And I'm thinking scrap metal is simple. The replacing of the meters was a simple initiative, is a simple initiative. That, and when I say simple, not from a technical standpoint of doing the work itself, it's simple for us to engage the local community and allow the local community to benefit from things like this, screwing in meters, scrapping. When we can do it and we don't, how can we expect, you know, others to participate in our local participation, or participate with our local contractors or businesses, if you will.
Okay.
So that's what we're not doing.
Okay, what I would ask is that maybe we can get with Walter, and he sets back up the page of the upcoming, and then they could always breeze through to see what we have upcoming. And if we can put it out as far as 4 weeks in advance of what we have in the pipeline, so they can start seeing, as well as making announcements at the council meeting.
Yeah, you know, upcoming bids, job announcements. I just don't understand or see why those things would not be automatically running on the TV other than upcoming, you know, something other than upcoming events, you know. So, thank you.
Okay.
We didn't have any public
No.
comment cards. Madam Clerk.
Board Member Davis,
Yes.
Board Member Botel,
Yes.
Pro Tem Hubbard,
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
That ends our consent agenda. Any person who would like to speak on an agenda item, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers, and give it to staff prior to the item being taken up by the Board of Directors for discussion. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak on each regular agenda item. In no event will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card and speak on an agenda item after the resolution is read or item considered. Public comment shall begin at 7:30 p.m. unless there is no further business of the Board of Directors, which in that event it shall begin sooner. In addition, if an item is being considered at 7:30 p.m., then comments from the public shall begin immediately after the item has been concluded. Any person who would like to speak during public comments, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to the staff before the public comment section is announced. Item number 4.
Resolution 4-19 UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Revere Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the Utility Special District to waive all late fees during the period of a federal government shutdown and providing for an effective date. And we do have public comment card, no further comment cards accepted at this time.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Good evening, Mr. Hort.
Good evening again, Madam Chair and members of the board. As stated, this is a resolution to grant a waiver of late fees during federal government shutdown. This is those qualifying for this will be any customer who resides within the service area of the district, not just within the corporate limits of the city, but within the service area of the district. That way no customer will be treated differently.
Madam Chair.
Board Member Davis, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Horton. This has been a very key item that we definitely want to push. My only concern is this for any time moving forward.
Yes, sir. I did not
no
put a time frame on it at all.
That was my concern as we definitely came up with this issue to make sure that you never know what government's going to do, that we don't have a time stamp on it. Who's going to be responsible for reaching out to Homeland Security and all the agencies to make sure that they know that tonight it was actually approved, so they can, I spoke to them, so they can put it on their websites for their employees and send out the email.
We can look into that. I'm not sure that Homeland Security would be the proper agency, but we can look into that and see who would be proper to make them aware.
Well, I was contacted in my office by Homeland Security, who U.S. Customs, and it was I forgot the other agency that was having conversations, giving us the actual numbers of the impact of having the folks that actually live in the city or work in the city that's doing government. And what they were saying is what all the cities that have done it, the very few, they have been given information to them so they can upload it to their website and send mass emails to all their employees so that, you know, because some people, they're still adjusting, so they can inform all their employees that's affected by what happened recently and what could be affected by within the future to come. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but we have something in place so that they can understand when they put their alerts out.
Well, give us an opportunity. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Give us an opportunity to look into the proper agency, federal agency we should make contact with. And I think it's important to please note that this is customers of the utility district, not just the city.
Correct, which is Magonia Park, Palm Beach Shores.
Yes, sir.
Ramsey Park.
Yes, sir.
And where else?
There may be some fringes of
Fringes?
one or two other customers.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any further questions? Madam Clerk.
Chadrick McCoy.
Good evening, members. Trodrick McCoy. I do agree that that is a noble idea and effort to waive the billings for individuals that potentially may be affected by the government shutdown. I hope it's uniform, though, and not just that we're looking to do just service members or actual federal government employees, that it's across the board, and I didn't see that inside of the resolution, and it wasn't descriptive. And even further, I think before we begin to waive fees, which I certainly would agree that you should do it, but there should be some sort of estimate, some sort of performance, some sort of amount in which we're budgeting that we're waiving. And the reason is because we work on a system that's kind of perpetual and it's periodic. So we have regular routine billings. I think the government shutdown has been over 30 days. So at the very least, we should have had some sort of relative idea of how much we are waiving. And that's just good information to know. And I'll tell you why. I'm particularly here tonight, not so much for the government billings and the waiving of the fees. I do agree that that is a good idea. However, it bothers me to the very core that we would try to give relief on one end and then have unscrupulous attorneys bill us on the other end. Thank you, members, for settling this case last week, but I can tell you since Friday, I've been going through a number of emails with the opposing side, which is the outside attorney, and these are regularly routine filings that are required by both the plaintiff and the defendant. But it appears that anytime a person gets the opportunity to take advantage of the city, they will. I mean, sending me emails such as the things that I should file. Well, let me be clear. I think I'm savvy enough to bring a case to this point, but I don't want to spend my weekend exchanging emails with an outside attorney who's contracted by the city only to bill the city every time he opens an email or every time he sends an email. Or I got one that really bothered me, and this is why I'm here tonight. A staff person at this law office sent me an email of a proposed filing that I should do based on what the court directed me to do. Now, let me tell you something. The problem with that is, just from the accounting perspective, and I also copied our internal auditor on this, when you bill a company for any service, the standard even in the medical professional, is what's reasonable and customary. No attorney should tell the other side what they should be filing. More or less, no attorney should be preparing a draft pleading for the other side. And I don't want the city to pay for that. And I put the internal auditor on notice, and also the city attorney and also the city manager just this afternoon, because I think at this point, the city might have incurred over close to $1,000 in just billings, all because this attorney wants to tell me how to close out my case, and I'm very clear on what needs to happen with that settlement. So be very aware, and I don't plan on letting this go, because I think it's a way of outside attorneys attempting to rob the city by nickeling and diming us by sending the plaintiff an email. So please be aware of that, because I will be bringing that back up again in public comments.
Madam Chair.
Board Member Davis, you recognize?
I'm back to the item in reference to the timestamp of why we're here. This is a great item to waive these fees. We can't wait for performance like we discussed, because you never know when someone's going to make a irrational decision in government to not consider other folks. And while we do want the performer, when we talked about it in the last meeting, we talked about what this is going to be like, how we're going to be impacted. But folks' lives are being changed and being addressed every day and impacted every day. So this is an item to allow us to move forward. We're giving them some relief, but still go ahead and do the proper things to look at some evaluation. And that's why I brought up, have we made contact with all those agencies? Because once we make contact with those agents, we can find out how many customers is impacted. And we will know that based upon those who come in and applying for the waiver. And so you can't get that information until they start making those applications. So we're doing the right thing. Staff, thank you for what you've been doing. Continue doing a wonderful job.
I would just like to state for the record that we are not waiving utility bills. We are simply waiving late fees.
Late fees,
And
yeah.
we do need to understand what the impact of that, the fiscal impact of the late fees that are being waived. But I don't want it to be misstated that we are waiving fees in totality. So, Mr. Horton and Madam Attorney, Madam Manager, I'm sorry, please bring us back an estimate of what those late fees are. I guess we would have some sort of calculations once we understand who the end users are. We should be able to gauge a figure by pulling a list of those individuals that were affected.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Horton.
I will ask the district's finance director to work on that.
Absolutely.
This is a finance issue. So,
Absolutely. Mr. Sherman, we expect that you can pull us a list. Once we know who those individuals are, you should be able to pull that together for us and present that to us. Okay. Madam
Board
Clerk.
Member Votel,
Yes.
Board Member Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
Pro Tem Hubbard,
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Item number-
Resolution 519 UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving the contract with Barney's Pumps, Inc. of Lakeland, Florida, by cooperative agreement on their contract with the Hernando County for well pump and motor rehabilitation services, authorizing chairperson and district clerk to execute said contract, authorizing executive director to approve change orders up to 10%, authorizing district finance director to pay an amount not to exceed $325,000 from project number 18136 and providing an effective date.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and second.
No public comment cards, Madam Chair.
Mr. Horton.
thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. As you know, we have been working toward getting all of the work that we need in the district under contract. We have been working in the past without contracts. Well, this is one of 4 contracts on the agenda tonight that will allow us to do the routine maintenance and repair and our replacement of pumps as we move forward under contract legally. And so with that, I would ask the board's approval of this contract so that we can move forward. And this is for repair, maintenance, and replacement if need be
Of pumps.
of pumps.
Any questions? Madam Clerk.
Board Member Votel,
Yes.
Board Member Davis, Pro Tem Hubbard,
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote, 3-1 with Board Member Davis out. 3-0 with Board Member Davis out.
Item number 6.
Resolution 6-19 UD, a resolution on the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing chairperson and district clerk to execute the interlocal agreement between Palm Beach County and the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District regarding open cuts on the county thoroughfare roads and providing an effective date.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you. I learned of this after declaring Garden Road at the intersection of Industrial Way a county road. As a result of that, there was some permittings that were required, and it took us almost 9 months to get that resolved. It was an emergency. So we had that area barricade for almost a year before we actually started the work. We had conversations with the county, and the county explained to us that if we got this, we could move forward in a more aggressive way to address emergencies that we've got up. We do have some emergencies that I'm going to talk with you about later this evening, but this will help us when we have emergencies within the county's right-of-way to expedite those emergencies without having a long, drawn-out permitting process.
Are there any questions from the board? Madam Clerk, did you have any public comment cards?
No public comment cards.
Madam Clerk?
Board Member Botel,
Yes.
Board Member Davis, Pro Tem Hubbard,
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
Their vote passed 3-0. Counts Board Member Davis out. Resolution 7-19 UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving a contract with Tom Evans Environmental, Inc., Lakeland, Florida, by cooperative agreement on their contract with the City of Claremont, Florida, as a sole source provider of Grundfos wastewater pumps, equipment, parts, and repair services, authorizing chairperson and district clerk to execute said contract, authorize executive director to approve change orders up to 10%, authorize the district finance director to pay an amount not to exceed $275,000 from project number 18136 and provide an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Chair, this is the second of the 4 contracts that I spoke with you about of needing to meet the various types of pumps that we have in operation on both the water and wastewater side. With that being said, I would ask the board's support by approving this particular contract.
Any questions, comments? Madam Clerk?
Board Member Botel,
Yes.
Pro Tem Hubbard,
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Resolution 81-19 UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving a contract with Thompson Pump and Manufacturing Company, Inc., Port Orange, Florida, by cooperative agreement on their contract with the National Joint Power Alliance Source Well for public utility sewage, dewatering, bypass pumps, and accessories, authorizing chairperson and district clerk to execute said contract, authorizing executive director to approve change orders up to 10%, authorizing the district finance director to pay an amount not to exceed $350,000 from project number 18136 and provide an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. Mr. Horton?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, this is number 3 of 4. I request the board's approval.
Any questions?
Yes. Are you? Can you tell us about this? Okay, are all of these pumps for the same thing? Are you just breaking it up between each company? What?
It's all of what you said plus. We have presently over 9 different brands of pumps utilized throughout the utility on both the water production side and on the wastewater side. And if you look at the dollar amounts are limited anywhere from $125,000 for the year upwards of about $300,000. With the number of pumps that we have, and just as a side note, the lift stations, most of our lift stations will have 2 pumps in them, smaller pumps. Some of our larger stations could have 3 to 4 pumps. That's just on the lift stations alone. At the water plant, as an example, we probably have a couple of dozen pumps ranging in very small sizes to very large sizes, bigger than this table to my right.
So this particular one is more or less a, is this water or sewage?
This
is coming from a particular company for what?
This particular contract can meet the needs of repairs on pumps on both the water and the wastewater side. So it will be able to do both. But I'd like to note that this particular contract is limited to $350,000. With the number of pumps that we have, if you just take, as an example, the lift stations, having 52 lift stations times 2, that's 104 pumps, but we really have more than that on the lift station side. On the water side, we probably are ranging about 50 or so pumps. About 50 or so pumps, ranging in a very small size to a very large size. So we need the flexibility to have the resources to get, if it's just a repair, to get contractors in so that they can look at the pumps and determine whether they can repair it. Now, some of these vendors only deal with certain brands. I'm sorry, I should have pointed that out. Some of these vendors can only deal with certain brands. So we would also look at the brands that they can deal with. And if we have the capacity within that contract, that's the vendor that we will use to make those repairs.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. What I want to say at this point, and what I want to note and point out, that I think we deserve a little bit more than I suggest that we approve this or recommend that we approve this. I think all of us up here are learned enough to comprehend just a little bit more information about the general items that are being proposed. So for me, after we get to number 3, it begs the question that if they, as we see now, as we have concluded based on what you've said, is the reason that we have four different companies is because, one, they all deal with different brands. Some of them might overlap, but it also allows us the opportunity to have multiple repairs going on. And if we approve at least $325,000 per company, we can go ahead and put those companies to work. I think we deserve that on the surface. I know it might not, be the school of thought for each of you as presenters, but we can digest a little bit more information than sometimes you want to provide us with.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Board Member Votel,
Yes.
Pro Tem Hubbard,
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Resolution 9-19 UD, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving the contract with Excellent Water Solutions USA, Inc. of Jupiter, Florida, by cooperative agreement on their contract with Hernando County for submersible sewage pumps and accessories, authorizing chairperson and district clerk to execute said contract, authorizing executive director to approve change orders up to 10%, authorizing finance director to pay an amount not to exceed $125,000 from project number 18136 and provide an effective date.
So moved.
Second?
Madam Chair, members of the board, first I'd like to point out that the name on here, I know it's spelled X-Y-L-E-N, but it's actually pronounced Xylem. I believe that's correct. And so I just wanted to point that out. Also, in this particular contract, this one is limited to $125,000. This also will be meeting the needs of repairing pumps. Again, not all of these are providers or can work on the same pumps. So what we can do moving forward, we will provide you, and we do have it in the backup, but what we can do in the future, I'll just put up a PowerPoint showing the various pumps that each vendor can provide, and if it would be more helpful, maybe we could group these together and we could show you the variances between the four when we have four like this together.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Board Member Botel,
Yes.
Pro Tem Hubbard,
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
That concludes our regular agenda. Public comment should be restricted to issues, matters, or topics pertinent to the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District. Please be reminded that the Board of Directors have adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the entrance of the council chambers. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the District Board Chairperson may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, and/or the building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, we have 2 public comment cards, and no further comment cards are accepted at this time. Charlotte McCoy and Mary Brown.
Roderick McCoy. This is a continuation of my comments earlier regarding the legal buildings. It's just really surprising to me that this is what it comes down to in Riviera Beach. Everybody is trying to find a way to get ahead, and it comes on the backs of the taxpayer dollars. Never was my intention to derive money out of this, but I felt so offended and insulted by this attorney when he suggested to me that I wanted immediate or expedited payment of the settlement amount. Well, here's what surprised me. Much of what I asked for occurred months ago. What I did want that was expedited was called an accelerated hearing under the law. But thank God that you members of the board thought it was important to just settle this matter so I don't have to put Ms. Lynn Hubbard on the stand to prove to the people why she didn't timely give up those documents, because clearly the city clerk's office said that they did not have them, and thus she was the only person that had them. Even further, the part when I received the draft document from the other side as to what I should file should not be billed to the city. That goes to the very core of something that's not reasonable and is not customary. Imagine you're in a divorce and your spouse's attorney files a document for you, or your ex-spouse's attorney. That just is not heard of. And then all of these suggestions as to me as a citizen should come to their office to pick up the settlement payment. Dude, I'm not going anywhere. You can send it to my house. In the same fashion that I sought relief in the court, I'm not about to chase down anybody for what I believe is due to me. And to suggest as if it has to be some sort of handoff at the same time makes me feel like I'm a criminal or I can't be trusted. These are the people that we hire as attorneys, and I promise you, I hope this message gets to Mr. Don Stevens and Stevens and Olds. That won't be tolerated here in Riviera Beach, because I personally go through every billing. But to subject myself to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of emails suggesting on how I need to close out my case as if I'm incompetent is downright disrespectful, and disrespectful to the city, because guess what? I'm sure it's going to be on their billings, but I hope at this point, now that I brought it to the light, they have sense enough not to try to attempt to bill that to the city, because it's not reasonable and it wasn't customary. And just as a note, we have to be on top of these kind of things as a city, because everybody's trying to find a way to get ahead, and I don't think it should be on the backs of the taxpayers. So I commend you, and excuse me for saying that earlier, but I commend you for taking the opportunity to provide relief for late payments and late fees related to the government shutdown. So certainly we need to be we need to be good stewards of the city's tax dollars, as well as being frugal when it comes to not making unnecessary expenditures on the back of taxpayers. So thank you, members. Those are my comments.
Mary Brown.
Miss Mary Brown, Riviera Beach. I would like to say, give a shout out to the entire city. The events that was on Saturday for the polo event that was held here in our city of Riviera Beach, over on Singer Island. Singer Island is classified as being in Riviera Beach. That much we do know. We sent out pictures, and the first thing they were saying, well, where was this held at? So we sent the pictures back and said, Riviera Beach. So we could always build on other things that we put forth in the next grand event. From there, Ms. Brown went over at the what's that, the Callaway event over there. I was so tired. But you cannot support one and do not support the other. So when I got over there, it was over 1,000 and some people that were over there. And they were having a really, really good time. So that just goes to show the residents and me that we all can come together. We can be agreeable as well as disagreeable. But when we all come together, we can get the job done. I'm a person, like I tell everyone that know Ms. Braham, I believe in skill set and professionalism. That matters greatly in leadership. They are pertinent in achieving structure and providing good government. This is what I look for in a person. No one has to tell Ms. Braham who to vote for or what to vote for. Yes, Ms. Braham take a lot of pictures, and I don't ask for them. But I look for those qualities because this is what will help deliver and move this city forward. You have to have it, residents. We have to get out of that mindset where just because I know you that you're friends. You look for those qualities that are there. And if you as residents do not get up and vote, do not complain. The supervisor of elections sent me a letter pertaining to the absentee ballots because that's pertinent, and you all should have that information. I did receive that letter because what I was saying is about the absentee ballots, I was correct. Some things that we just do and not knowing the ramification of it. So I would like for you as a board to also explore that, as well as city attorney, also. Thank you all very much.
No further public comment cards.
Thank you. Discussion by the executive director.
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you. Just got a few things that I need to make the board aware of. First, I'd like to say that the floodgates have opened in the utility district. We all of a sudden are able to, we've been getting an influx of applications, and we have been conducting interviews for the last 4 weeks now for operators, for senior utility mechanics. We've also identified candidates for our utilities engineer and our senior utilities engineer. Hopefully we will have both of those individuals on board within the next 2 to 3 weeks. I think with all the interviews that we have conducted, we probably have maybe 2 or 3 outstanding vacancies that need yet to be filled. So I just wanted to let the board know that it is happening, and it is happening in a very good way. The second thing I would like to announce is that our contractor, Ferguson, has started with their sub, UWS, of installing the new meters to replace the old Neptune meters. And as of this evening, we have installed 674 meters thus far. They will be starting this week, or they are starting this week out in the Woodbine area. That's going to take about 2 weeks to finish because of the size of that area, but they're progressing fairly well. And I just wanted to let the board know of that. The other thing I need to make the board aware of is on this past weekend, we had a call about water being off on the Sam Cooper Way, and we sent one of our people on standby out to check it out. They couldn't find out what the problem was right away, but within about 30, 45 minutes, we found that someone had tampered with our valve, and it actually cut off the water. Fortunately, it only impacted one block. I think I sent the board a notice of that this afternoon. Earlier this afternoon, the person who actually did that came to the district and explained to us that they had done it and why they had done it. We're going to have another conversation with them to let them know that that is illegal, but they had a break on their property and water was running everywhere and they didn't know where to cut the water off. So they went to the street and cut the valve off, which cut the water off to the businesses and 3 residents in the area. As a result of the water being cut off, as a precaution, I've had to issue a boil water notice. So that was the notice that I sent you all this afternoon, and that is being addressed. In addition to that, we've had 3 emergencies that I need to make the board aware of, and I will be bringing those forward for ratification in the March meeting. The first is on Garden Road it's actually on Industrial Way at Garden Road, just west of where the last emergency was. We have a force main. It's an 8-inch force main made out of asbestos pipe. And staff in their inspection of the lift station found a few weeks ago that there was some bubbling occurring in that block, and lo and behold, we thought it was a water main at first, but we found it to be the force main. And so we are in the process of replacing that force main, and we'll bring that ratification forth at the March board meeting. In addition to that, on the Sam Cooper Way, a few weeks ago, a contractor hit a water main, and that water main damaged a portion of that roadway. It was not the fault of the contractor, but it was our fault because we did not have and did not know that this particular line even existed. It was not in our records, and so when they asked for markings, we didn't mark it because we did not know. So that is on the utility district. The repair of that road and the line is in progress, and we'll be bringing that forward in March for ratification. The last emergency was at Avenue C and on U. We had a failure. I'm sorry. It's at the repump station at Avenue C and at the repump station at Avenue U. We've got 2 very old pumps at those 2 repump stations that have failed, and we need to get those addressed. The one at Avenue C is more critical because at the present time, we're not able to pump out of the tank, which creates a fire safety issue for that zone. And so we're in the process now, have already secured a consultant to address that issue. We hope to get that back up and operational within the next 2 days so as not to have this fear of not having enough pressure in the distribution line to meet the needs. The new pumps, we believe it will be in within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and we will be able to get the temporary pump out once the new pumps come into place. And we will be doing the same thing at Avenue U so that we won't have the failure that we had at C, particularly since U also provides service to the VA hospital, Gramercy Park, and Woodbine. So I wanted to make the board aware of those items. Madam Chair, if you or any members of the board have any questions, I'm prepared to answer those.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Horton. Anything, Madam City Manager?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Statements by the district board, starting with Board Member Botel.
Yes, I wanted to amplify what Ms. Bram said earlier about absentee ballots and read to you just a little bit of the instructions she received from the Palm Beach County, Florida Board of Elections. It states, a designee may pick up a mail ballot for a voter beginning on the Thursday, 5 days before and including Election Day. Please note Florida Statute 101.62 4B4 limits pickups of vote by mail ballots by a designee to 2 mail ballots per election other than their own or immediate family, just so that we're all aware of rules regarding absentee ballots. I also just had a question about our next, had a question about our next city council meeting. Do we have a meeting on March 6th?
Yes, ma'am.
We do, okay. There was a question about that because it's Palm Beach County Day in Tallahassee. So we will have a meeting.
Will you all be attending? How many board members will be attending that? Okay. Yes, so we'll have a
Good,
meeting.
okay. I wanted to thank everyone who contributed to the success of the Riviera Beach polo event on Singer Island on Saturday. It was a great event. We had so much support from people in the city, and it, as Ms. Braham said, it was a great time had by all. So thanks to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Pro Tem?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm going to start with the least of the comments. I'm not a steward of the records for the city of Riviera Beach, and as Mr. McCoy stated, he received those several months ago, none of which the clerk's office received from me. So they must have had them in their possession if they provided them to him. So to make the public think that I had some records, then subsequently gave them to the clerk who gave them to them is quite untrue. If they gave him anything, they had it in their own possessions. They did not get it from me or were able to retrieve it on their own without my assistance. And by no means am I afraid of being questioned about anything that I do up here by the courts. That's where we all go to find relief, is in the courts. The other thing that I wanted to mention is what with Mangonia Park and our calculation of our water. In the times that we've spoken with them and the times that I've spoken with them, the only thing that they were waiting for and was in concern of, and I agreed with them on this, was the way that we were calculating what they owed us based on the category that we put them in. One, during the last meeting that we had here as a joint effort, you know, the statement was made that if we can control Mangonia Park's water, we can control them. I'm personally not interested in controlling them. I want, if we're going to provide water services for them as we do Palm Beach Shores, I want us to calculate that fairly so that they can provide clean and decent water for their city. And I do think that we were miscalculating them by putting them in the wrong category. And just to let this go on and not to close this out and do something about it, I think that's just kicking the can down the road. And I'd like staff to look into that, and let's try to come to some closure on that situation. We, you know, I don't think we provide service to bully people. I want us to be fair and decent with the people that we provide services for. Also, this is something that that will probably come back up on the city side. When we went to try to, in our effort to try to stabilize the communities, we were trying to make sure that we ourselves did not burden the homesteaded persons of Riviera Beach and put them into the hands of the investors by leaning their property over and beyond what is fair. So it has just come to my attention that they never received from the clerk's office the original release of liens on their homesteaded property. Now, normally if that was done, it would come straight from the clerks. But with this initiative, from the county clerk, with this initiative, we should send a registered letter with those documents inside for the people to have and keep one on file. But to just have them to sit there in our office and in our possession is not doing the initiative any good. That people don't even know that they can bring their properties up to par because those liens have been removed from their property. So, and these are just homesteaded properties. I'm not talking about commercial property, so I don't want anybody to pass out. The and I also want to thank all the young men who participated in our Boys to Men program that graduated successfully, Mr. White and all the parents that came out for the graduation. Ms. Hoskins came out for the graduation, and you know, the boys were quite impressive, and they all, some of them rather, say that they will stop by our council meeting to speak to us about what they learned and how appreciative they are for that program that we had. I was quite impressed and very glad that that we did that for our young men. The last thing I want to say, under the umbrella of this election and as a candidate that's running for office, is that I know this year we have not carried ourselves and behaved very civilly throughout throughout this past year, but we've never been one that actually picks up and destroys each other's signs and each other's properties. There's been times when people will put up other people's signs when they see them down. Myself and another candidate, signs were thrown in the middle of the street on Old Avenue on yesterday. The other candidate, you know, was, I was quite upset, but the other candidate was quite upset, and it was understandably so, that the next time they're going to just take up everybody in their race signs. They don't know if I did it or the next person did it. So I'm going to ask all the candidates to let's leave each other's signs alone, because people pay good money for their signs, and taking people's signs and destroying them it's not going to help anybody in any shape, form or fashion. So that, I think, let me peruse this real quick to see that I leave anything off on my notes. Okay, thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Mr. Horton.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that the Utility Special District is a service-oriented organization, and I don't know who made the statement about if you control the water, you control Mangolian Park. That would not come from the district. So I just want to make that statement known in the public setting, that was not made by the utility district.
Point well taken, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because you were not here at the meeting that we had, the joint meeting that we had with them when that particular statement was made, and I'm glad you pointed that out. But I just don't want us to be a city that subscribes to that school of thought. You know, we don't think like that, and it's usually other people that come that comes up with those brainy ideas. So, no, indeed, you were not present.
Mr. On the customer notification, is this going out today?
It has already been delivered.
It has already been delivered.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
residents, if you would please be on the lookout, there is a correspondence, a customer notification of water meter replacement. There are some things that you need to know. UWS will need to gain access to the water meter, which is located in a meter box on or near your property. The meter box area should be clear and accessible, and contact will be attempted prior to installation, and if the customer is at home, they will be made aware that the water will be off for a brief period of time. This is typically 30 minutes or less, and at no time should the contractors enter your home. If you have any questions, you may call customer service at 561-840-3109. And so this is ongoing meter replacement. And if you have any questions, Riviera Beach residents, please give us a call at 561-841-3109. Want to remind you that on Saturday, March 2nd from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. there is a tenants' rights symposium. It is featuring the Florida Rural Legal Services, our code department, our police department, building will be present, as well as community partners, housing services. This event is being sponsored by Healthier Neighbors, Florida Rural Legal Services, the City of Riviera Beach, and the Food Bank. We will provide child care, and also fresh produce will be distributed on that day. For additional information, please contact Pascal Reed, 561-346-2775. There being no further business, we stand adjourned.